Hello and welcome to our show today. We are so glad that you're here. Our Daily Reset for Success series is here to help all of us reset our lives so we can live a happier, healthier, more creative, and prosperous life. Our co-hosts today are me, Marian LaSalle, creator of Spotlight Productions, producing live stream shows for business owners and entrepreneurs, and Lady Lou, the baby boomer babe, offering custom interviews for authors, speakers, and people with a message to share. We also have with us today Ilene Dillon. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is a perfectly fine day, isn't it?
It's lovely. And Eileen's out there in California. Her sun is just coming up and she's waking up the world out there. We're so tickled to have you, Ilene. Thank you for being here.
It's a real pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So where in California are you today, Ilene?
I'm in a town called Davis, which is right near the capital, Sacramento, in Northern California.
Oh, it's beautiful there.
Yeah, I'm sheltering in place with my son and his family, and they've had the good sense to put me in charge of planting the veggie garden.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we know now that Mother Earth is your mother.
You read that. Thank you.
I did. Ilene wrote the most beautiful story and sent it to me yesterday about how she went from being rejected basically by her stepmother and her taken away from her real mother. And I mean, a real sad childhood story. And she was lamenting at I believe you were 37, weren't you, Ilene, when you were lamenting that your mother, stepmother, nobody loved you. And your girlfriend on the phone said, well, Mother Earth is your mother. And you were already a gardener and loving the planting and digging in the dirt. And you took that to heart. And Mother Earth is now your mother. And
Right.
she loves you.
That's true.
I love the story.
Yes, it was so amazing because I was all choked up and my friend said, "You're thinking too small about who your mother is." And took me by surprise. And really, I think an interesting thing is how much we can do with our imagination, because I was going to go to the beach and take my shoes off and walk in the sand. And in fact, it started pouring rain. And I said, I'm not driving to the beach in this. So I went and lay down on my bed and imagined going to the beach and walking in my bare feet. And what do you know? It worked. I claimed the Mother Earth as my mother, and I never felt orphaned again.
That feels so good.
Isn't that beautiful? And there's so many elder orphans out there in the world now. There are people who do not have a mom and dad anymore, and perhaps don't have any siblings or any other close relatives. And they might be in another part of the world, but they're not in their life. So they call themselves elder orphans.
Wow.
And I like the term. I'm kind of like an elder orphan. My folks are gone, but I have a brother and a sister nearby and a nephew who lives next door to me. So I'm not quite the elder orphan that so many are who have no one. And that's where you found yourself. You had, 3 children at that point that you were raising?
Before you answer, Ilene, you're banging and banging again. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Lou, yeah, could you handle that?
Yeah.
Okay. So down at the bottom of the screen and in the description, you're going to be able to find ways that you can reach out to Ilene. So she has an Emotional Mastery for Life website, and it's emotionalmasteryforlife.com. And down below that is a way for you to get a hold of her. So I really want you guys to pay attention to this, because the Daily Reset for Success show is all about helping us reset every day. And emotions play a big part of this. So we're really happy to have Ilene here today to talk about this. She's a professional talking about what we all are going through. So please answer Lady Lou's question, and I want you all to reach out to Ilene. Thank you.
Thank you, Marian. It wasn't my professional self that got me into emotions. It was the fact that I was full of anger. You talked about my difficult childhood. When you have a difficult childhood and you don't have a place to express those emotions, what happens is like water behind a dam. The emotions just build up and they constantly look for a way out. And what happened is my first husband and I agreed to have a child together, and she was 10 months old when he came home one day and said he wasn't ready to be a father and that he was leaving. Oh. And that was what broke the dam in me. And the anger started pouring out of me. And the only place it had to go was over me and my little 10-month-old daughter. And that really was disturbing to me. This was back in the 1970s. Nobody knew anything about emotions. Not even therapists looked at anger as a separate entity. They would look at it as part of schizophrenia, for example. But we surveyed 37 schools in California in 1998 and asked this question: do you now or have you ever offered a standalone course on anger? How many of those 37 institutions that prepared therapists do you think actually taught a standalone course on anger?
1.
0.
0.
0. So even therapists weren't being prepared to deal with emotions. And that's after generations of us shoving emotions down and stigmatizing them and trying to ignore them. And you can't do that because we are at least born with emotions. We may have them before we're born, actually. But we're born with them. They stay with us 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, and they don't leave us even when we have Alzheimer's. We still have emotions. They don't leave us until we leave our bodies, right? And yet we didn't know anything about it. And so I couldn't, I was asking questions like, what causes people to be angry? And why is some anger explosive? And if I try to stop it, why can't I stop it? I had all these questions. I went to the University of California in Berkeley. I went to their library and spent a few days there with the help of the reference librarian, and I still didn't find any answers. So that's when I set out on the quest to figure out how I could deal with anger. And it led me ultimately to understanding how emotions actually work. Can I tell you a little bit about how they work?
Before you do, I want to discuss it because this comes up a lot. Lady Lou and I have had this discussion. We've had problems in some of our groups because of it, like, outbursts of anger, and nobody even knows where it's coming from. It's like, I'm sorry I did that. I don't know why I did that. It happened to me just the other day. Lady Lou had to apologize to a guest for me, not on air, of course, but it just came out, and I thought, now where'd that come from? I'm a nice person. I've never really had a problem with anger or anything. So here's what we did. We diagnosed her and we gave her a name. My anger lady that lives inside me, that's slipping out now and then, is called Gladys. And Lady Lou, we named hers as well. What was yours, your name?
It was named after my Aunt Audie.
Because we didn't know what to do with it. It's like, I don't know. It slipped out. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. It sounded angry. Although I didn't really, I wasn't angry, but I thought, oh my God, if I could do this, I could imagine somebody who's drunk or who's, on drugs or, who just doesn't have any common sense and how their anger just explodes and they kill people or whatever, right?
Well, you don't have to have all those exigencies either. The issue, most of us women were taught to be nice, right? We were taught to be nice, which means that anger is not acceptable.
Right.
So what do? We stuff the anger down.
Yes.
Now, any emotion that is held inside grows, right? And anger is our most active emotion. So even if you don't think of yourself as being angry, if you go through the process when anger comes up, you don't really give yourself permission to just to be angry, but you say, oh, well, how could I set that aside? Or how could I not express that? Or how is there something else I could, and you don't deal with it, then what happens is it stays inside and it builds up. And along comes something that triggers, just like I said, when my ex-husband left, that triggered me. And the anger spills out because anger is our most active emotion. You know those old Disney cartoons where the character would swallow a bug and the bug would be inside of trying to get out? That's the way that's the way I envision anger. And so the very fact that you're such a nice person and that you don't usually express anger or maybe, excuse me, maybe even acknowledge it, is the culprit. Because anger is constantly looking for a way out. And if there's any of it in you, it'll find a way out and it'll come out the way you're describing. And there are certain payoffs for holding on to anger. And it sounds like you may have the same one that I have, which is that it's not okay to be angry. And so we set it aside, and then it builds up, and then it explodes out of us or expresses itself, and we go, oh, no, I didn't mean that. And we start piling it up again. So we never get out of the circle of anger. What I have learned over the years is that it's possible. I'm a recovered angry person. It's possible not to have any. Now, you can never get rid of we can't get rid of emotions because they're part of us, but we can make them that big in our life, and not so we have to name them or continue to try to deal with them or whatever. I mean, naming is fun. I don't mean that you can't do that, but what about just putting emotions where they belong, which is coming up in us to help us learn and navigate our lives? That's where they belong.
Good morning, Karen. Karen says this information is so important.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Karen. I appreciate you being in our audience today and listening to this. I think everybody needs to hear this one, don't they?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Hi, Karen. So emotions are given to us as tools, and I'd like to explain how this works. We have an experience. Let me back up. First of all, it helped me to learn that our Earth is a big, giant school. I hope people listening like school, because it'll be a bad piece of news if they didn't. But we're all here to learn. And how do we learn? We have experiences. And then we work with those experiences and move through them. Every experience offers us something to learn. We don't have to learn it, but there's an opportunity there. We could talk maybe in a few minutes about COVID-19 and what is it offering us to learn, right? And with our experience comes emotion. And every emotion has a message, right? Loneliness, for example. What do you think causes people to feel lonely?
I don't know, but it does seem to affect a lot of people. For some reason, I always have something that's keeping me from feeling lonely. I don't understand it. I love people. I love to be around people, but I'm not really sure what causes people to feel lonely.
But most people think that loneliness comes from being alone. Would you not agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's not it at all.
No.
And you have the secret, Marion. The secret is that you have the same amount of energy coming in as going out. When you're lonely, you have more energy going out than coming back in. So since you do things that you like to do that are talents of yours, you have energy that goes in and out. And if you feel lonely, just do something to bring energy in. The best thing is to do something you have a talent doing. But bring it in, read something you like, dance, listen to music, bring it into yourself. Because you can be lonely in a crowd. You can be lonely in a marriage.
Yes.
Lauren, I used to get angry about getting angry. Yes. Well, Lauren, let me just digress a minute. A lot of people get angry about getting angry, and they get angry at themselves for getting angry,
Yes.
which builds the anger. It's
it's like a nightmare, right? The
which
Twilight Zone.
I'm sure, Lauren, you figured that out by now. But what I've learned is that anger, the signal of anger, is that we have these ideas inside of us about how things should be. You should not take the last cookie. You should wait in line. You should not be greedy. Notice that the rules come in shoulds and should not. So anytime you get angry, if you ask yourself, what's my should here? What do I think should or should not happen? That's the universal cause of anger, is that you have these shoulds and they get violated and you feel angry, right? And we think that other people make us angry. Other people don't make us angry. Other people stimulate the violation of our shoulds, and those shoulds lead us to get angry. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and I've heard Lady Lou say, now don't should on me.
Right. Well, if for Lauren, we'll say don't should on yourself either.
Right.
And so what I learned finally with anger is that when I have all those rules about how life is supposed to be, and clearly they're not correct or they wouldn't get violated, right? When I have all those rules, it makes me more rigid. So anger is really coming up to show me where I'm rigid and where I need to change. Does that make sense?
Oh, the light bulb goes on.
Right. And it's so simple, right? Isn't it simple?
Yes.
So then, let's use the example. I'm driving down the freeway. Eventually, we will all be able to drive down the freeway again. I'm driving down the freeway and a driver cuts me off. And a lot of people get angry about that, right? Because we think drivers should not cut us off on the freeway. Well, I would say there's a certain percentage of all drivers who do cut people off on the freeway. What's your percentage, Lady Lou?
Oh, I'd say 50%, if not more.
50%. So what happens if the next time you're driving down the freeway, the driver cuts you off and you say, you're part of the 50%. You're not angry anymore, you see. You've taken the should out, right? And essentially, anger results when we are not taking action, when we're not empowering ourselves. So a real cure for anger is to go ahead and live your life as fully as you can, as you want to. And then there's not a lot of occasion for anger.
Ooh, that's a big challenge for some of us.
Well, it may take a little time, but it took me close to 50 years to figure all this out and start teaching it. And I give you the advantage of, I wrote a book. I give you the advantage of my 50 years. You can get a drop on it and do it much, much faster than I did. Emotions in Motion is the name of my book. Mastering Life's Built-in Navigation System.
I love it. Yeah. What did Lauren say?
She says, I now listen to my anger, pay attention to the messages it's bringing, and give myself permission to release it. Great.
Perfect.
Great. Now, also...
One more time, Eileen, put your book up a little closer so we can see it, because I think we need to start having classes on this, okay? Emotions in Motion. I love it. And we can get it on Amazon or your website.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Do you hear me, Lady Lou? We need to start having classes.
I'm ready.
I'm ready to share this material with the world, because
good.
As you and I were talking before the show, I am now 77 years old. I live usually I'm a landlubber right now, but usually for the last 3 years, I've been a full-time RVer.
Oh my gosh,
traveling,
I'm so jealous.
traveling the U.S. and Canada. And I do it without having to be courageous, without having to be afraid, without getting angry about things, without feeling lonely, because I am in emotional mastery now, finally, at last.
Oh, thank God, huh?
Oh, Karen,
Yeah,
you bought my book. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Oh,
Ah.
well, we'll have to talk to you more about this class. I think there's going to be a lot of takers. We can do it right here on Zoom.
Well, I'm certainly interested in sharing this. That, one of the reasons I'm still writing and traveling and working at 77 is because I'm really excited to share this. And frankly, I haven't found a lot of people who have this kind of approach, because once you understand that emotions are given to us to help us navigate these experiences and figure out the lessons, all of which I talk about how to do that in my book, then what you can do is just go through emotional situations that fast.
Oh, we're going to help you set it up.
Thank you,
it's
Karen.
already a done deal.
Okay. All right.
We've already got our first participant here with Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, I'll have to leave the garden for a little while, but that's okay.
Well, just for an hour a week or
Right.
something like that. We won't take you away from that pretty garden.
So every one of our emotions is giving us a message. Love says, come closer, right? Anger says you're being rigid. You have these shoulds. Update your view of the world. Loneliness says you are not loving yourself enough. You're giving more energy out than you're bringing back in. And once you know what these are, you have an experience, the emotion comes with it. By the way, I want to just tell you, we do not own emotions, and emotions do not own us.
Oh.
Right? Emotions are energy. Like a river, we don't own the water that goes through the river generally. I guess some people who are landowners think they do, but you can't own that water, right? You can't own that energy. It goes through you, and that's what emotions are designed to do, to come up when you have an experience, give their message, you utilize the message, learn the lesson, and they move on. That's what they're designed to do.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Oh, out, damn spot, as Shakespeare said.
Eileen, I have a question about this now. You said that no one else is seeing it from this perspective. Why do you think that is? I mean, we've got psychiatrists, psychologists, we've got people that are trying to deal with people that have anger issues. Why has no one come up with what you have?
Well, there are 100 roads to heaven. We have different approaches to things because different people respond to different approaches, right? What I have observed over the years, I'm an emotional literacy pioneer. I wrote books for parents to help their children deal with emotions back in 1994. Wow. So it was a long time ago. And so a lot of people most people live in their heads. Yeah. And emotions don't happen in your head. They happen in your body. They're connected to your head. But like cognitive behavioral therapy says, emotions come from the thoughts that you have. Well, I think they come through your body, connected to your experiences, and then you have thoughts about them. But that's not the way people look at them. So we are looking at emotions intellectually. I had the advantage of being in a terrible mess and being very determined to get out of it. And so what I was looking for was something that actually worked, that didn't make me have to go back and replenish and do it again and do it again. The kind of work that I'm offering with emotions, you figure out how to work with emotions, you start getting on top of an emotion, and then it just sort of disappears. Let me talk to you about fear. I was afraid. You know something about my early childhood, and when I lost all my parents, my father was or my birth mother anyway, and my father was in the military. We moved every 18 months to 3 years during my childhood. I lived in 11 or 12 different homes by the time I got out of high school, right? So it was a tumultuous kind of experience. And so I had a huge amount of fear. And then I got to be a single parent for 20 years with no support and no savings, and working my job and taking care of my children. And I was constantly afraid. So I got to age 50 and I thought, well, I've been able to figure out anger. I wonder if I could figure out fear, right? And what I did was figure out just a simple way of dealing with fear that left me in the position of being able to just, oh, I'm afraid of something, let me do this thing, and it moved on, right? And I thought that I would still feel fear in physical conditions, but in actual fact, I didn't. And I tested that when I was about 74 years old. I went on a cruise with my sister and I swam with a full-grown jaguar in the ocean. And sat and posed with the jaguar, and I had no fear at all, which was really surprising to me.
Wow. Jaguars don't usually, I didn't think they liked water. They're cats.
Cats like to swim. This cat's head was this big,
Oh.
I don't, the picture's in my van. I'm sorry I didn't bring it.
That's okay. Oh, I'm fascinated, Eileen. I am just fascinated.
Me too. We're speechless, which doesn't happen very often.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm finding myself being very animated because I'm so excited that you are open to this.
Yeah.
So let's apply this to the current experience that we're all having with COVID-19, right? If every experience we have is an opportunity to learn something, then what is COVID-19 offering us? And I made a 2-page tip sheet that people can get. I sent you the link, Lady Lou. I think I sent you that last night, or maybe Marion. I don't know who.
Well, you sent me the link for the story. I didn't see the link for the tips.
If I didn't, I'll send it again, and maybe you can post it. But at any rate, on this, I have a list of several possible things that we could be learning or needing to learn. For example, one of the big lessons of the COVID-19 is to point out to us that we are all connected, right? And we don't often understand that or accept it. We think I can do this over here in my little part of the world, and never you mind what's going on over there. But COVID-19, do you know that COVID-19 is 0.0000049,215 THS of an inch? It is such a tiny little thing, and it has brought humanity to its knees. That's really profound as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. Oh.
Okay. So another thing that we're facing, and we haven't figured it out yet, is we have a split between the material world and the energy world, or the spiritual world, or the world of love, however you want to look at it. What's more important? Is it more important to save our economy, or to save the people? And to save our hearts. And so many wonderful heart things are happening, like the Italians coming out and singing opera on their balconies to one another. Or I think last night I was looking at a community that I forget where they are, but they howl at night in appreciation for the people who are taking the first responders, the people who are taking care of them.
Oh, that gives me goosebumps.
Yeah. So we are, here's an interesting thing. Human beings don't like to change. And as a therapist for 50 years, what I discovered is that most people will have something come up and I go, oh, I don't have time. I don't want to do that. That's too scary, whatever. And we don't make the change that is clear we need to make, right? And usually people will wait. And every time that lesson comes back up, it's a more painful lesson. So they'll wait until the pain of that lesson gets so great, they think it couldn't be any worse if they take the leap and go to the new place. That's what it takes for us to change. Now, think about COVID-19. We have needed to make changes on this earth. We need to take better care of our earth. We need to take better care of ourselves. We need to slow down. We need to take better care of each other, right? And so this tiny, tiny little particle has come into our lives, stopped everything, and said, recalibrate, right? And the emotions that come with it. Some people, there are emotions that they've sat on for years that are coming up. People are making major changes. People who are codependent, my next book's on codependency, people who are codependent are having a terribly hard time staying alone for any length of time, right? And so there are all these lessons and the emotions that come up with them, fear, anxiety, anger, they're all there to help us figure out how to learn those lessons.
Oh, well, Ilene, our time is gone. I
Oh,
wish
no.
we had another half hour, another hour. This has been so enlightening and so wonderful. Thank you. We will have you back. And I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll get started on putting together some kind of a class for you, and we'll share it with our people. And what we'll do is, if when it all comes about, we will post it on the Natural Curiosity Facebook group page. So if you want to know more about it after watching this video, go over to the Natural Curiosity group Facebook page and join the page, and we'll post it there as to when the class will be starting and all that good stuff. Will that work for you, Ilene?
I'm excited about it. Thank you.
Oh, me too. Me too.
I wanted my life to get easier. You guys are making it easy by setting up the class. That's cool.
Oh, we'll be so happy to do that and to help you. Thank you for being here. We just love
My
you
pleasure.
already. It's amazing how that works through the video camera. We fall in love with people. But thank you for being here. And thank you, Marion, for all your work. So we're going to have to say goodbye, unfortunately, and thank all of you in the audience for joining us. Well,
Absolutely.
Natural Curiosity is our umbrella where we put all of our live stream videos and recorded shows. And you can find us on Facebook and YouTube under Natural Curiosity. And we're also on all the favorite podcast stations. So you can listen to us while you're running around once you get to be able to run around again. We're waiting for that day, aren't we? So anyway, you can also go to naturalcuriosity.life, Marion's website, that help you to learn more, and you can contact us over there. And you can contact Ilene at the little scroll things on there, and it's also going to be in the descriptions underneath the videos on YouTube and Facebook and under the podcast stations. So we'll say goodbye now. Thanks again, Ilene and Marion. We love you, all of you. We love everyone.
And remember,
Thank you.
create a fantastic day for yourself.
Very good.
Till
Thank you.
next time.
Bye.